Took 2 hours?
Okay, folks, we're 5
That's
seconds
you.
out, so.
Yeah, that's you.
Maybe I had that,
No. No.
Hello, everyone. If I call the meeting to order. This is the Grand Traverse County Resource Management and Administration Committee, which is a committee of the whole, and it's July 11th, 2012. And if we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if the clerk would call the roll, please.
Commissioner Gilman,
Here.
Henschel,
Yes.
Inman,
Here?
Max Bauer,
Here.
Thomas,
Yep.
Wheelock,
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman Richardson,
Here.
Commissioner Fleece, and Commissioner Limcool are excused for this meeting.
Okay, and before we start, I was asked to remind my fellow commissioners and other folks up here at the table that when speaking, please use the microphones and so that the audience who are not in the room can hear us. So, anyway. Okay, with that, our first item is the approval of the minutes from June 13th.
Moved as presented. Support.
Okay, moved by Inman, seconded by Henschel. Any comments or, yes?
I'll be abstaining.
Okay. Roll call vote then?
Commissioner Gilman,
Yes.
Henschel,
Yes.
Inman,
Yes.
Max Bauer,
Abstain.
Thomas,
Yep.
Wheelock,
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman Richardson.
Yes. Which brings us to our first public comment. The clerk will read the rules for public comment.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. Chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4, Order of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding a specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson.
Okay, so anyone in the public wishing to make comment on any subject, just step up to the table, please.
My name is Georgia Durga. I'm Director of Grand Traverse County Commission on Aging, and I just wanted to announce that one of our board members, Ralph Safradini, was named Distinguished Senior of the Year for the Cherry Festival. He was supposed to be here tonight, and he's not here. So anyway, so I want to congratulate him and let you all know that.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public comment portion. Bring us next to the approval of the agenda.
So move.
Moved by Thomas.
Support.
Supported by Wheelock. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Our next item is a special order of business, which is a public hearing on the amendment to ordinance number 17, which is our solid waste ordinance for the Grand Traverse County. The rules and regulations pertaining to ordinance number 17. So, do we need to present it, or do we just open the public hearing?
Open. Well, Kim, do you want to do an opening presentation at all? Sure. I see Bob isn't here, so I'm assuming that's what you're here for.
That's correct. Kim Elliott, Grand Traverse County Resource Recovery Department. Bob is on a well-deserved vacation, and he wanted me to pass on to you that we've had no public comment to date on this amendment.
Mr. Chairman, if we could open the public hearing then.
Okay. Okay, Kim, then if you want to step back then to your seat, and this started mostly because the Resource Recovery Council, which was under the Board of Public Works, was transferred to directly under the Board of Commissioners within the last year, and we had to do a lot of housekeeping on the ordinance to make sure it read Board of Commissioners instead of Board of Public Works and so forth. So, with that, I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to make public comment on the amendment to ordinance number 17, please step forward. Okay, seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sure we have to hold this until it's published to make it active, but just a couple comments. In addition to changing the ordinance to make it comply with the change from the Board of Public Works to the Board of Commissioners, Ordinance 17, as most of you may recall, was just flat a bad document. It was almost impossible to read and understand, and I think the people that were involved, and myself, I guess, included a little bit, did a lot of work to clean this thing up and make it so as it actually came in line with other county ordinances as far as the time frames that it described and all those kind of things. The idea that license approvals took 90 days and all of those issues were just not practically used. So with that, I would move to approve the amendment to ordinance 17.
Support. I have a motion by Wheelock, support by Thomas. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And that amendment will take effect upon publication. I think it's immediately upon publication, isn't it, Kim? I'm pretty much sure that it's immediately upon publication.
Okay. Next item of business is the consent calendar.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar. A, receive and file. Community Corrections Monthly Report for April and May. 2, Community Collaborative June Report and Goals and Accomplishments 2005 through 2012. 3, Commission on Aging Report for June. 4, Animal Control Division Update. 5, Resource Recovery Managers Report. 6, District Court Annual Report. 7, Conservation District. B, Approval. 1, Area Agency on Aging, Fiscal Year 2013 Annual Implementation Plan. 2, Commission on Aging, Project Fresh Grant from Bay Area Senior Advocates. 3, Community Corrections Plan and Application for Fiscal Year 2013. 4, Memorandum of Understanding Boardman River Dams Project. 5, Personal Protective Equipment Policy. 6, District Court Employees Stipend. 7, Tuberculosis TB Services Contract Renewal. 8, Mitchell and McCormick Annual Software Maintenance and Support Renewal Agreement. 9, Healthy Futures Services Agreement Amendment Number 7. And 10, Grant Award Acceptance, Zonta Club.
Okay, is there any member of the public who would like any item on the consent calendar removed for further discussion? Please step up. Well, just tell us what it is, and then we'll come back.
Item B3, the Community Corrections Application and Grant.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Anyone else in the public wanting an item removed? Okay, with that, I'll take it back to the commission. Is there anyone? Yes, Jason.
B4, please.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of item B, 3, and 4.
Second.
I have a motion by Inman and support by Henschel. A roll call, please.
Commissioner Gilman,
Yes.
Henschel,
Yes.
Inman,
Yes.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yep.
Wheelock,
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman Richardson.
Yes. Okay, and that will bring us back to then items removed from the consent calendar. So you want to step back up and we'll talk about item B3, please.
Good evening, Greg Summers, Community Corrections Manager. With me is Sharice Shively, Community Corrections Coordinator. I asked this item be pulled because today, after we'd asked for this review tonight, we heard from the state that in fact our funding is going to be what it was for the last year of the last grant. So it's been increased back to the level that it was last year. And the total figure that we're asking in the grant is $261,343 per year. That does include the drunk driver jail reduction money. So that money has been restored supposedly by the state, so it'll be additional money for us.
Okay? Sonny?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to submit the application for the Community Corrections Grant in the amount of $261,343 per year.
Second. I have a motion by Wheelock and a second by Henschel.
Greg, is the drunk driver reduction money, is that additional funds to that? Or
That's included in the $261,000.
It's in the 60.
The actual figure, $199,243 is without that money.
Is there any discussion? So I did have a question. So what is that, what is the drunk driver jail reduction funding? How is that money used?
That money is for OUL 3s, money that we put in residential, or offenders who go to residential treatment. And if they qualify under sentencing guidelines, where they normally could have been sentenced to prison, it's money that pays for that residential treatment. We're not billed directly for that money. The state is billed for it. That's why the funding is separate. It's $62,100. The state is billed and takes care of it financially. Otherwise, our funds go through Grand Traverse County and Finance Department.
Okay. All right, everybody understand the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay, Commissioner Gilman.
Well, I pulled this because I don't understand, first of all, why we would be asked to reaffirm our agreement with this unless there is a reason. And and the reason I would suspect is we are pledging ourselves in the future to expending more of taxpayer money towards destruction of the dams, come what may. I notice in the memorandum of understanding, it still references future efforts to secure full funding to remove the Sabin-Boardman and the Brown Bridge Dam, which has already been determined, to be removed. If there's not enough money, it can't be done. I've been knocking on a lot of doors lately, and I have yet to find anybody when I'm knocking on doors who is happy with the removal of these dams. And I will, as I have in the past already, I will oppose any efforts to expend more of our taxpayers' money to these ends, especially when we take a look at the studies right now show that in 2015 our electric rates are going to triple. Okay? That's base load. It may not be a lot of base load, but those dams are base load if they were repaired. And it may cost a lot of money, but in the end, I'm looking at the engineering that they're talking about simply for the Brown Bridge Dam, and we're talking millions of dollars worth of piling dirt. So I think in the end, this board was kind of drawn into something that maybe it shouldn't have been drawn into. But I'm going to hold my position that it's inappropriate to continue with this process that most of the people in this county disagree with.
Yeah, I don't agree with you, but that's all right.
Commissioner Inman?
I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding for the Boardman River Dams project, and as indicated in the memo, does add the Grand Traverse Band to the agreement.
Support.
I have a motion by Inman, support by Thomas. Just further discussion.
Just a question with regards to the dams issue. We've had some discussion in the past about some landowners their personal properties being affected by this. Have we done anything to determine what the intention of the county is when this is all said and done? What is that property? Is it an intention of this board that it just is county parkland, or have we talked to them? Have we maybe Dean or Dave? Anybody have any progress? Has anything been done at all? Does anybody have a dialogue going with these property owners? No?
To my knowledge, no.
My understanding is that the bottom lands are county land. Now, whether they'll be used for parks or something else, I think, we don't know. That hasn't been determined yet, but we do have a pretty strong legal opinion that, it is county land. It always has been. Okay, any further discussion of the motion?
I think it would be possible, once the dams are removed, that the county could give up their flowage rights. And there would be some property owners in there that would gain riparian rights, if that was not to be a impoundment anymore. But as long as the county maintains the flowage rights and it is an impoundment, there are no riparian rights. So, but some of the big property owners, it could revert back to them, so they own to the center of the river. That would have to be done in court.
Yeah. At the very least, I think that would be an appropriate thing to do, is to take a look at the riparian rights, or take a look at the adjustments to allow those property owners to at least have the experience of what they at least close to what they might have once had, so they can at least maintain that property in between. Some of the studies have shown that the team, the watershed, they'd like certain growth to occur in those areas. So, and perhaps there might have to be some agreements. They'd like the growth to happen in those areas because it's also going to be part of what's going to control the flooding in a situation where we might have a lot of water at any given time. But at the very least, we should be doing that. We should be giving them at least control, or at least the rights to the water line. But I still say, and when I'm talking about 3 times electric rates, okay, this is real. This is very real, and especially with the new MAC rules. And we're going to lose coal power under the new rules unless we change administrations fast and get rid of the EPA, because the EPA is out of control. And we lose those coal plants, electric rates are going to go up. That's how it works. And people can say that dams are not renewable, but the cycle is water up, water down the stream through the hydroelectric. And for people who say that there isn't enough water to make it work, well, it was good enough for 100 years. It worked. And you can drain it down, you can make it look bad for long enough so that it doesn't look good. That's one thing, but I still think that this needed a lot more thought before the decision was made.
Commissioner Wheelock?
Well, I guess the point about this is first, the Boardman River project was a 3-year, very public, open discussion, and coming to the conclusion that the dams were coming out. As far as the discussion about the adjoining property owners and who was going to own that property, I don't believe any one of us has been able to determine exactly where the flow of the river is going to be. So you can't really talk about footage until we know where the river is. And that's not going to be able to be determined until we get a lot closer to actually breaching the dam, where the dam is going to be breached specifically, and where the water flow is going to actually occur. So, to have preliminary discussions about who's going to receive how many foot of property is just not even possible until we get farther down the process as far as exactly where the riverbed is going to be. We know that just simply by lowering Boardman Pond, the riverbed changed significantly from where we thought it was going to be. And when Brown Bridge is breached and that flow starts coming from there, we may move east or west, a couple 300 feet. I have no idea. But anyway around it, until we actually determine where the river is, I don't know how we can possibly have a discussion about who owns what frontage footage.
Okay, yes, Mr. Henschel?
I respectfully disagree. Just because we don't know the exact number of feet doesn't mean we can't discuss what we intend to do with the feet once they're determined. And I guess my position is I'm not ready to move forward on anything. With all respect, all due respect to my fellow commissioners that have been through this process from day one, I'm just going to vote no because this is something I think needs to be discussed, and I think we need to have a dialogue with landowners and amongst the county board and what the intentions are. So that's where I'm at.
Commissioner Maxbauer?
I just would like to call everyone's attention to the fact that the Parks Board would certainly want to be included in these discussions, especially since there is a possibility that the bottomlands are parkland.
Okay, everybody understand the motion? By roll call, please.
Commissioner Gilman?
No.
Henschel?
No.
Inman?
Yes.
Maxbauer?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yep.
Wheelock?
Yes.
Chairman Richardson?
Yes. Okay, motion passes to adopt the memorandum of understanding. Okay, that brings us next to Veterans Affairs and a staffing amendment. Chuck?
Here. Good evening, Chuck Lurchin, Director of Veterans Affairs. Before you today is a request from the Veterans Affairs Administrative Committee and my department to adjust our staffing plan to allow for an additional employee. And I'd be happy to answer any of the questions that you might have concerning this. We tried to be as concise as we could. Of course, there's a lot more involved as far as why we need this. The Veterans Affairs Committee feels very strongly that the numbers pretty much speak for themselves. Does anybody have any questions that we might be able to answer for you?
Commissioner Inman.
Dean, have we determined how we take care of this increased line item for personnel?
Well, we really haven't had that discussion, to be honest with you, but and I don't know as if we've been directed to find funding for that at this point either. So
That is a item that's not covered under a grant or anything, is that correct?
No, we don't receive. We're 100% general fund.
And then you don't have a fund balance?
No, it all reverts back each year.
So what's our contingency amount right now? 75,000?
No, it's
well,
about,
we reduced it slightly recently.
it's about 70,000.
65,000 approximately.
I actually called Dean this morning and suggested that it seemed to me there would be excess personnel money in the county administrator's office budget because of the 4 months that we're not paying for an administrator and the gap in salary between. I mean that would do it for the rest of the year. We're only talking about roughly $20,000 for the 5 months of the year. So.
Right. Chuck, you said that you returned, the money is returned. Last year, do you know how much was returned back to the fund?
I don't have the figures in front of me. I think
guess.
we had to get a supplement mid-year for one of our funds. We were slightly over budget maybe last year, 2% over, so I don't think anything was returned to the general fund last year.
Bottom line, what are we addressing with this particular, what is this to address? Obviously, it's a clerical
Position, right. It's to address the increase, the surge in the workload that, quite frankly, we're having a very, very difficult time meeting. Wait times are way up. Too many other things over the last 3-4 years as we've seen this increase in the demand for services have been set aside to the wayside. Technology, our updates, we're chasing our tail each and every day. We have to get the additional help in there to meet the incoming people. And frankly, we don't expect it to get much better in the next 5, 7, 10 years. So a little bit of preparation for the future also.
Commissioner Maxbauer.
Thank you. I think that we need to take a serious look at increasing the funding for this department, and I'm going to just give you my personal experience. I was on the phone to Chuck Lurchin about another veteran, one of my constituents. And in the process, I discovered that, unbeknownst to me, my husband, because he was a cadet, was considered active duty when he was in the Army during the Vietnam War. And he qualifies for benefits. So I made an appointment, and Greg and I went in to see Chuck. While we were waiting, there was a veteran standing there, and I have to tell you, he was almost in tears. This is a veteran that was entitled to, I think he told me, around $3,000 or $3,200 a month, but he was receiving only $800 a month. And he was entitled to this. He was on the verge of losing his home and becoming homeless. And he could not, he was just gushing. He was telling everybody that he had no idea that I was a county commissioner, and nor did he care. He just was telling everybody what this department had done. They had saved his home. The other thing that we need to take a look at is that $3,000 that this veteran was entitled to comes into this community. That veteran is going to pay, he paid his tax bill, a 2-year delinquent tax bill. It truly impacts the lives of Grand Traverse County residents more so than other areas of county government, in my opinion. So I think we need to take a serious look at this.
Commissioner Wheelock.
Well, I certainly believe you are exactly right. We have to provide service to these veterans because it's the right thing to do. That's a simple fact. My concern is, we can do our piece. We can figure out a way to cut our wait time from that 30 days down to maybe 15 days. But if we don't figure out something to do with this 14 to 18 months it takes the U.S. government to process an original claim, we're just beating our heads against the wall. And I think we all in our community needs to speak to our representatives very strongly that this is simply unacceptable. I absolutely know that this board will come up with a way to figure out how to finance an additional person in your office. But we as a community and the public as a nation needs to figure out some way to tell the United States government that 14 to 18 months to process an original claim for a veteran is not acceptable. And I don't have the right way to do that. I make my calls to my congressmen and my senators like everyone else and sends them the emails. But the fact is, we need to figure out some way to make sure that Washington understands that that is not acceptable. The 30 days that we do, that's unacceptable to us. But we're going to figure out a way, and I'm sure by the end of this discussion right here, we're going to figure out a way to cut our wait time down. But if we can't, as a community and as a nation, find a way to cut that 14 to 18 months down, we're just beating our head against the wall.
I mean, I think it's incumbent on us to provide the service to Grand Traverse County, and actually, we provide service to more than just Grand Traverse County.
Grand Traverse and Leelanau
But the point
and
is,
other areas.
But if we get the call, we need to respond to it. I mean, I understand what you're saying about the federal government, and it's unbelievable it would take that long, but it seems like the least we can do is try to cut down the backlog at this end. At least people know that they're, being dealt with, that people know that, someone's going to talk to them and start resolving this problem. Commissioner Billman?
As a result of we're not just talking about time here, we're talking about literally people, their needs not quite being met, or they're being missed or dropped out of the process because we don't have enough eyes and ears and what have you, knowing what's going on. I mean, is this a part of it? Is this a part of the problem? I mean, are we underserving them in other ways than just time?
No, I don't think so. I think once we get them in the door, they get high-quality services all the way around from our office. And you all have constituents you would hear, of course, if they weren't receiving that. Any complaints you may have been receiving probably were of a time issue, which we don't have that much control over. Is it part of the overall solution? Perhaps as Commissioner Wheelock was explaining the larger problem nationally. Yes, this action is going to help us prepare. Of course, the government has things in the works to fix this problem. This is a huge national problem that's going on right now. Getting ready with some technology things, electronic filings. We just got approved for, several things that we can now take electronic signatures on. So, and these are the things that the shortage of staff is not allowing us to keep up on. So it is part of the overall solution, I think.
It would just so I understand, as far as the level of service that how we're trying to help, would it be still advantageous if we were to start the process with perhaps a part-time position, not quite a full FTE? I mean, just at least till we can figure out a permanent funding, part of the permanent funding as far as, when we look at our budget and look into the next year or two. Would that help at all at this point?
It's certainly your decision with everything. Perhaps that would have been more appropriate three years ago, to bring someone along. Either way, we're going to still be able to, accomplish our mission, so to speak. So are we going to be able to do a better job? Even with the addition of a full-time staff member, we're still viewing it as a very minimal amount of staffing necessary to do the job. Hopefully some of those statistics, and of course there's tons of them out there we could give you, but when we see a client increase over the course of 4 or 5 years of 238%, that's huge. That's tremendous. And for us to be able to keep up on that is very difficult. So to answer your question, that decision ultimately is yours. We'd be thankful for anything at this point. So.
Commissioner Redmond?
Well, I'm supportive of your recommendation to add a staff with the ongoing, continuing stress and dangerous situation we're putting our soldiers in overseas with this ongoing war we're having. Wars, they're not getting one tour, they're getting multiple tours. So any event, that it's got to affect these individuals greatly, and when they come home, they should be at the front of the line in terms of county consideration. So I'm supportive of the position. Is Dean and Dave, are you comfortable at this point with the Commissioner Richardson suggestion of looking at that personnel area to fund it at least through the rest of the year, and then when we go through our budget process, we can fine-tune that?
I'm comfortable with the money
Okay.
out of the administrator's budget, that there's plenty of attrition there in the budget to cover those kind of things. What I am worried about is we haven't really gone into the 2013
Right.
budget process long enough and far enough to even determine whether I really think that taking this outside of the budget process, you run the risk of having to eliminate that position as soon as you hire it. So that's the thing I caution about. If you don't have the dollars, you really can't expand services. And if we have to, contract, how do they fit into the priority scheme for the rest of the county budget and the mandated services that you have to provide? So,
Well, I'd assume it would, my assumption is it would rise to the higher level, so it would be protected.
Commissioner Wheelock?
Well, I guess I put Jen on the spot, so she's hiding back there in the corner and doing the same. But, I would certainly think that we would at least authorize the HR department, the finance department, to evaluate whether or not this position is appropriate and come back with a funding mechanism for it. And one other thing that I failed to mention earlier, you talked about people serving 3 and 4 terms or deployments. One of the problems the VA nationwide has right now is the fact that this program was never designed in any form to handle reservists, National Guard, Army Reserves, and now we put those people in harm's way, and thereby they now qualify for full benefit. And the whole VA program, as I understand it, was never designed to deal with that multiple reserve programs and all of these thousands of reservists that we have across the country that we have now deployed over and over and over again, and now they're entitled to benefits. And no one had ever designed any sort of a program to handle this many people.
That's absolutely correct. It's a big issue right now. System wasn't, we used to draft people. Now we don't. We use our reserves and our guard. So, yeah.
Mr. Henson?
My understanding of this program is we're helping veterans get on benefits that they're eligible for and they've earned. From the tax dollar perspective, we as a community pay money into the federal government, which in turn trickles that money back down. And my understanding is Michigan, at doing that, our state of Michigan is a donor state. We pay more money into the federal government than comes back. And so I look at the Veterans Affairs and maximizing our use of that as a way of leveling that playing field for us as a state, as well as a community. Chuck, do you have any kind of statistic as to, for every dollar Grand Traverse County puts into this department, how many dollars come back to our community? How many of our own dollars come back?
Well, I don't have the actual statistic in your the request, the memo there. We did give you a 5-year tracking of essentially what the VA pays back to the Grand Traverse County area in the form of benefits. Mostly check to mailbox type stuff, plus the provision of health care, education, all those positive benefits. Just over $31 million last year. I believe our budget was $360,000. So if you wanted to figure that statistic, it's a pretty good return. Our office, of course, can't take credit for all of that, but a very large percentage of that is the direct result of what our people do in getting the veteran into the system, accessing their benefits, in many cases having to fight for their benefits for them. So you're absolutely correct. It is a good way to bring some positive resources back into the community and take care of those who need it. So
I think we should really make this a high priority based on the return it brings to the local community and the local taxpayer. Per dollar we pay in, how much we get back. It's a huge return.
Mr. Gilman?
Well, yeah, actually, we're starting to talk about priorities and going to the next year. I could definitely see places where we could shave off at least. I mean, this is really, this is not something that we couldn't find, for example, in, we fund TALIS, we fund planning. I mean, these are areas where we could cut right into, and it would be much better money spent than,
Would somebody like to make a motion?
I will.
Okay.
I'll move that we direct staff to find a way to do this.
Support.
Okay,
Simplest
have a
way I can put it.
Motion by Thomas and support by Wheelock to bring it back at the BOC in 2 weeks.
And bring it back for,
Ways and Means or the
We're
board
going to have to
meeting?
figure out the funding mechanism, so
Yeah.
I would think the HR director and finance director and the administrator can come back to us. You know, I don't know they can make it by Ways and Means next week, but possibly by the Board of Commissioners meeting to
Okay.
evaluate this.
Any further discussion? Everybody understand the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you
Chuck.
very much.
Thank you for coming.
It's a relief. Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to Mr. Benda, the administrator. Leadership Grand Traverse?
Yes. I think Jen wants to address this.
All right.
Evening, Jen.
Good evening.
She was hiding back there.
I see that.
yeah.
Jen Seaman, Human Resources Director. This is Leadership Grand Traverse. You guys are probably familiar with this. The session for this fall, the deadline will be September 7th. And wanted to bring that forward to the board to determine if you want to have someone in Leadership Grand Traverse or not. And if you do, what kind of process you'd like to follow.
Last year, we had, as Charlie Jetter went through Leadership Grand Traverse, and I was really skeptical because I didn't really know what it was. And so Commissioner Lemkool challenged me, well, you should go through it. So I did. I went through it with Charlie and the whole class last year, and I tell you, it's a tremendous educational experience, and I think it's very important to this county organization that we continue to have people going through it. It is basically, it's impossible to just describe the whole experience in a nutshell, but it's an overview of our area from economic, from
Arts.
humanitarian. I mean, every different layer of our community, our county, and our area, and what's happening, what's going on in the area of arts, what's going on in the area of economics. Did you know we have a shortage of workers in our area? Yeah, well, Sunny does. We have an overabundance of jobs, but it's only in certain fields. All these different things that you just couldn't get, taking a weekend class. But through this experience with the Chamber of Commerce, I highly recommend it. I think it's important to our community. It's more of the glue that holds us together as an exemplary community that Grand Traverse area is. So.
You want to make a motion?
I'll let Commissioner Gilman go ahead and say his piece.
Well, I was going to say, I'm sure it's wonderful, and I remember you talking about it, and that's great. No, I just don't think that it's something that we should be expending taxpayer dollars for.
Commissioner Max Bauer?
I agree with Commissioner Gilman.
I do also. Commissioner Inman?
Well, I'll tell you, I went through the program and through Huntington, our Empire Bank, before it was acquired with Huntington, and the bank.
Was it still in the TP then?
Huh?
So was it still in the TP then?
The TP?
Or do we actually have block buildings here then?
Oh, okay. Yeah, back then. That was a long time ago. But it was one of those programs where organizations look to their people that they thought were going to be long-term potential opportunities for advancement, those kinds of things, and it was something that was important to their organization as well as to the individual, how to better enhance that individual to fit in the community and to represent, for example, Grand Traverse County in our community, which I think is very important. We have been consistently, since the program started, I believe we may have missed 1 year for one reason, I don't remember, but I think we have consistently had a representative on staff that has gone and always reported back that this was not only an exceptional experience, but it did assist them with their career and having the county being represented in the community. I think is very important. So I think this is very important for the board to speak up and say Grand Traverse County and its employees are going to be a fabric of this community and be represented in the community, and one of the outcomes of this is that that individual gets involved in the community, volunteers for an organization or some sort of benefit to the community outside of their employment. And that's how they learn about these things. So I'm very supportive, as Rob has said, to continue this program and to give our employees an opportunity to go through it. And like I said, it's a very small amount. And I think it shows that as a board of directors, we're caring towards the people that work here to give them that opportunity, at least one person a year to represent us in the community and to get involved in the community.
Jen, we don't have anyone, we have no applications on file right now?
We have not started any process.
Yeah, we need to we need to send something out.
Well, somebody has to make a motion first.
Well, okay, I'll make a motion that we move forward with Leadership Grand Traverse.
How many positions do you want to fill?
One.
One position?
Yep. At $12.50.
Okay, and how?
And then we'll send out a request and then.
Solicit applications?
Yeah, and then previously, I think, Sonny, what we did is we ended up interviewing. We set up an ad hoc committee for an interview, and then we just chose someone.
Okay, so if I can paraphrase, your motion is to fund one participant in Leadership Grand Traverse, and we will solicit applications for that one position.
Yep, that'd be my motion.
All right, do I have a second?
Yeah.
Mr. Henschel, okay. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to reiterate that, at first I looked at this as the same way Commissioner Gilman did. I said, why would the government pay for that? But I really encourage you to look at it from an educational standpoint. We do reinvest in our employees, and I believe that does bring value back to the county. Now, really, you should go talk to some of them about, the decisions they make as part of their job, whether it be in law enforcement or wherever they work in the county. Those decisions are affected by the education they have, and a very in-depth working knowledge of our community, I think, improves the quality of those decisions they make.
Mr. Maxbauer, then Gilman.
Most, if not all, departments have training budgets. We don't necessarily dictate to department heads how they train their staff. I just, we can't continue, in my view, to spend money like we always have. We have to start making priorities, and we certainly chose a priority earlier this evening when we said, the VA department needs to have more staffing, or at least we believe so. At least my experience is that. But we can't keep doing everything that we've always done, and we have to make some hard choices. I know it's only $1,200, but $1,200 here, $1,200 there, $1,200 there, pretty soon you've got $12,000. And to me, it's a matter of priorities, and I think taxpayers have other priorities right now.
Commissioner Gilman?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Thomas, did you have something?
No, I was pointing out there.
Oh, yeah, I will take public comment on this. Go ahead, Sonny.
This is a difficult decision for me because I've been involved in the program a couple times, and actually I was even invited to come and speak to them about community relations and community involvement a few times. I guess I appreciate the educational opportunity for the county employee. I absolutely recognize that. My concern is whether or not I can make that educational opportunity turn into something that the community can witness. Because I think the one thing that we have, and one place that we truly lack is the understanding by our community of what we do. And I'd like to try to figure out, I understand when you go to Leadership Grand Traverse and you talk about what you do at Grand Traverse County and how you're involved in that. That group of 20 people understand that. But we have to try to figure out a way to make the community understand what we, Grand Traverse County, do. And, if the $1,200 isn't the issue for me, because I truly believe that we'll find a way to find $1,200 if that's what we need. It's just a matter of if there is a better way for us to educate the community as to what Grand Traverse County does. We have all kinds of opportunities to train county employees, but do we have opportunities to educate the community to what Grand Traverse County does?
Any more comments by the board? Public comment then, if you'd like to come up?
Good evening. Elizabeth Webster, 926 Avenue D. I would just like to state that as a taxpayer, I recognize that if a private company wants to invest money in the education of its employees, that's fine, and that's as it should be. But for anybody to take taxpayer money and better the career of a public servant, I think that's a misappropriation of funds. I think Commissioner Maxbauer had it right when she said, create the priority of our veterans. They've earned every penny that we can give them. But as a taxpayer, I don't want to subsidize somebody else's education who's supposed to be serving me. Thank you.
Any other public comment, please?
Andy Mark, 2875 East Railroad Avenue, Interlochen, Michigan. You're getting used to hearing that now, I guess. I understand we want to train our employees. There's probably a good return on the investment. But as we look at my personal budget, I have to decide, do I buy a pop and a candy bar or just a candy bar? I mean, I'd like both. But sometimes I can't afford both. And we're talking about, can we come up with enough money for the VA to hire another person to help our veterans? And we're talking about, we'll just spend a little bit here and a little bit here. We have to sometimes tighten those purse strings. And if there's money that the different departments have to spend on their training, maybe that's where that money should come from. It's already been allocated for it, considered, and they can do what they want. I don't believe that we need to be spending extra money at this point when we're looking at how to save it, to send one county employee to a training event that's not really going to do a lot for the whole community, just that one individual in their career. Thank you.
Any other public comment on this issue?
I have a comment.
Yeah, I have a comment too, if I can go first. I mean, I believe it's a valuable program. I myself have never participated in a program like this, although they're certainly well established in different places. But if they're that valuable, it seems unfair that we would only send one. So that's one of my problems, you know. So we're basically to pick one person and say, you're the favorite one, but nobody else. If it's that great, we should do it for more than one person. And the other thing that fits into it is that we don't have a list, we don't have anybody breaking down our door trying to do the program right now. So if we say, if we don't do it, then I don't think we've broken anybody's heart by not participating. Go ahead.
Well, number one, the history of the county is that, we've given them notice that there's an opening and that we're going to participate. Then the people apply, and we've always had at least good interest in our management staff and our people here to go through the program. Sometimes it's really difficult to choose one over the other, and some years we've sent two. But I think if you had an opportunity to hear from the people that we have sent over the years to Leadership Grand Traverse, I think you would get a different picture and a different impact on what it meant to that individual and how it enhanced that individual and their ability to serve the community and to work for Grand Traverse County. So that's how strongly I feel about it. And going to Sonny's point, I think I think it's a different viewpoint. Is Leadership Grand Traverse wasn't really set up to have the public understand what we do. It was for us to understand what everybody else does in the community. And it's always been an ongoing challenge, and I have made this suggestion every year during budget for 20 years, and it just hasn't gone anywhere. It's like cat licenses. Is that, a lot of governmental units have public information officers, and their job is to get out what the county's doing on a daily basis and to enhance, and we've done a lot. You know, we've enhanced our website, you know, we've enhanced our communications to our employees. We've come a long way over a number of years to get a better understanding for the public to have access. We're televising our meetings, it's webcasted back. We have a better website for information. We're certainly getting more information out to the public. Can we do more? Yes. But I don't think we'll never cross that bridge unless we hire somebody to actually do the function.
Okay, any more discussion on this? By roll call, please.
Commissioner Gilman?
No.
Henschel?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
No.
Thomas?
No.
Wheelock?
No.
Chairman Richardson?
No. Motion fails.
Mr. Chairman, might I make a note on procedure for the clerk? I notice I've been the first vote every time, just as a little shuffling.
I didn't even notice that.
Thank you.
And I've been second.
We're just trying to.
I mean, I don't mind setting
the tone.
No, you're right. That's not the way it's supposed to.
That's why we put you in the center of the room.
I make a motion, we take his vote away from him.
Hey!
Mr. Chairman, I would mention, though, I do believe that I would be supportive if there's any department, any county department that deems that it would be valuable to use part of their training monies to participate in Leadership Grand Traverse. I'd certainly consider that.
Okay.
So do you want to make that as a motion so we can send
We
it?
don't
No.
have to.
No,
I mean,
I don't
they
think so.
have the training budget.
If they come to us and ask us to make
We
the
don't-
application to Leadership Grand Traverse on behalf of one of their employees, we would consider that.
We don't ever
Well, we
dictate how
wouldn't
they
even-
spend their
Yeah,
training
we wouldn't even
dollars.
see it. Yeah.
We don't even see it.
But I think the
Yeah.
application
Just-
has to be made by Grand Traverse.
Just so they know it's,
Oh.
my point, Sonny, is so they know it's allowable because they've never used that training money for Leadership Grand Traverse.
It's the individual that applies, not the organization.
So we should,
So-
so we just need to tell Jen, training money can be used for Leadership Grand Traverse, and we're fine.
But, I mean, I have my own training budget.
Yes, you do.
And other departments have their own training budgets, so they would have to use their own training budget
Yes.
to go through this, not my training budget.
That's
Right.
correct.
Just so we're clear.
Just so you're
Come on,
clear.
Jen.
I just wanted to make sure.
You didn't understand
I
that
didn't
they could only
really-
use yours?
No, I didn't know where this was going, I just thought I'd get that out.
You can let
Sorry.
everyone- So, I think it's fine for you to let everyone know with, as department heads, if they have staff members that wants to go.
Or at
and
least,
they've got training money, they
review
can
it
go.
with.
And
your-
if the department
your county
head
administrator.
feels it's valuable,
Then that's
I'm not
fine.
going to argue with them.
Then that's fine.
I'll probably run it by the administrator, see what he thinks about it. Okay. Moving right along. Health officer. Are you introducing this one also, Jen?
Yes. Yes. All right, so we have completed our interviews for the health officer, and there were 5 individuals on the interview panel, myself, Dave Benda, Jerry Pugh, who's the interim health officer currently, Michael Collins, Dr. Michael Collins, who is our medical director, and Linda Yarrow, who is the health officer with the Health Department of Northwest Michigan. And it was a unanimous decision on Wendy Trute. She is with Rock Island County Health Department.
Trudy.
Trudy? Is that
Wendy
her?
Trudy.
Wendy Trudy, okay. Rock Island County Health Department, she's currently their health officer, responsible for 70 employees within their health department, so it's a little bit larger than Grand Traverse County. And she's very well qualified, master's degree from U of M in public health, and her background check has been completed. There's no issues in regards to her background check. So bring it forward for you today to consider and approve.
Just curious, Jen, I did some researching this person. I was wondering if in the interview process, did you talk about what led up to the mass laying off of people from that particular health department and the circumstances surrounding that? Was that part of your interview?
It was.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Can you discuss that? Or? Because I found the same story.
I guess we found that it wasn't necessarily under her control. I don't know how to better describe it other than that. That we didn't have any concerns. Jerry, yeah,
I mean,
we did have a dialogue with her regarding this.
In the article I read, there was an intimation that the state of Illinois was really, really behind on its payments, which
Yeah.
is certainly, in my experience with the state of Illinois, that has been the case for many, many years.
Yeah, they have a problem.
actually.
Jerry Pugh, Finance Director, Grand Traverse County Health Department. We did discuss it a little bit. Those layoffs never occurred in the first place, but also just the funding mechanism for their health department. They actually have a tax levy that is designated to fund the health department. And at the time they were facing these layoffs, the state of Illinois was like 7 months behind making their payments to the department. So it was more of a cash flow issue where they didn't have the cash to make the payroll.
So it was more of a temporary thing.
Exactly.
Except that then it didn't actually happen.
Yeah, and it never actually came to fruition, so.
And the administrator, of course, is comfortable with all of that.
Oh, yeah, I felt she was an excellent candidate.
Just one other question. I mean, as far as consistency, and we oftentimes do the comparison thing, other counties in Michigan, is that about where we're starting the position at?
Yeah, well...
Comparable counties, obviously.
Yes, health officers make in that same range, and it's very difficult to find them for under $100,000 in our...
What was the former health officer, what was he making?
She was...
No, here, Fred.
The same that we're recommending for Wendy.
But she's got a similar type of experience.
My sister-in-law is a health director, and her salary, as a matter of fact, I called her and said, because they have a lake home in Lake City, and I called her and I said, we have an opening, apply. And she said, no, I really love where I am right now. Her salary is $115,000, so this is in line.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to concur with the staff recommendation to appoint Wendy True as health officer for Grand Traverse County. Anticipated start date, late August, beginning of September, at a starting salary of $95,627.
Second. There's a board action?
Yep, we have to concur with the staff recommendation.
Did you want to put in the relocation allowance as well?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, the relocation allowance, I think it was $5,000.
Yeah, is that okay with the seconder?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that it says...
Hold on, let me set the motion, and then I'll go through the... Okay.
Just that it's ratified.
I'll be paying attention.
Effective immediately, was the recommendation. That would mean this is a board action, not a committee action.
All right, I'll amend that motion to ratify it as a board action.
Okay. Everybody understand the motion? Any further discussion?
No. Repeat it back.
Going to be a motion to ratify approval of Wendy Truty as the health officer for Grand Traverse County with the anticipated start date of August, beginning of September, at a starting salary of $95,627, along with the $5,000 allocation to be approved, along with the $5,000.
I thought you added some to it.
And this is a final board action tonight. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Hey, I went first that time again.
You know, I tried to throw you a bone.
We were waiting to see how you voted before we...
Okay, next we have the Health Services Building, RFP.
We sent out a formal RFP. 3 proposals were received, and we are recommending to use the services of Caldwell Banker to list our health services building on Garfield. We felt that they had the most positive bid and probably the best network for getting that building on the market and sold as soon as possible. This is something that the county administrator controller can approve per the procurement policy, so we're bringing this as information only at this point.
So they're going to list the building at 719?
Correct. There's a...
And what's going to be their percentage, their fee?
The commission on all three of the proposals that was received was a flat 7%.
Okay.
Commissioner, no, you're good, okay. Commissioner Hensel?
I'm just, if the numbers were exactly the same, how did you choose one? Just based on a feeling?
Well, the proposals are never the same. I mean, we looked at experience in selling commercial real estate. There were two that were, had a lot more experience in that area, and I don't want to mention any specific names here, but there was some. You can't be completely objective when you're looking at. There were factual information that you could look at, but it was primarily because of their track record, and they had a listing price that was in the middle. There was a range here, obviously, but we just felt that Caldwell Banker was in line with what we were looking at in terms of where we would start with, selling that building. We don't want to sit on this for a long time either. And, some real estate sells, some doesn't. It's an older building. It has some service needs. It's kind of towards the end of its life cycle, but we felt that they were going to be able to market it.
Commissioner Maxbauer, then Gilman.
Well, I worked with Dan at Caldwell Banker, and he is an outstanding realtor for commercial. And plus, I feel the need to mention that I did talk to him right after we started plans to build a new health building. And at that time, he said, Chris, he said, I think I've got a buyer for your building. And I told Dennis. I went in and saw Dennis and told him. So I'm confident that he will do an outstanding job.
So the first listing is going to say motivated seller?
That's up.
Yes.
Very motivated.
Okay, this is information only, so we need to take a vote. All right, everybody happy with this now? All right. Brings us to the administrator's update.
Okay, I've got a few items that we're working on. Actually, the first one isn't me working on it at all. It's the finance director and the treasurer are going to be meeting with the BPW tomorrow, after the BPW meeting with a special finance committee that's been set up to talk about the debt and the septage bonds and the deficits. And I met today with the city manager to discuss the possibility of contracting with them to provide them with level 4 assessing services, to sign their assessment rolls. And it was a very amiable meeting. And we all agree that we can do that and we can work on that. It's just, getting the price nailed down with Bob Vandermark, who is willing to do this, and for the county, because these folks can do that and go off by themselves and contract independently for that service with other units. Bob's willing to do it. The revenue would come to the county.
Microphone.
I'm sorry. Do you want to say something?
Has he made any remarks on how our apprentices, our level 3s are coming as far as their progress towards level 4?
No, in our department, you
Well,
mean?
we're training some new level 4s.
You can train new level 4s, but they have to pass the exam, and
Yeah.
that's the tricky part. It's almost like getting a PhD.
Yeah.
It's kind of a closed club, and you can't get in, you
Well,
can't get in.
he's the top
They keep
guy,
They keep the opening real narrow.
Yeah.
But, he said it would only be for a year or two, maybe tops, but, if we can give them a good service and if we can provide it to them, why would you go out and spend, it's very expensive to get a level 4 assessor. So They may just like what we do with them. That'll be coming soon. I received a request for response within 30 days. We got it on July 3rd from the Bureau of Indian Affairs regarding a trust application made by the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians for 158, almost 159 acres of land on M72. And apparently you've all been through something like that before.
Yes, we
and
have.
we're kind of doing our due diligence right now. There are specific questions they asked. They didn't ask, do you like that idea or anything like that. They ask, what's the zoning, what's the assessment on that, and there's pretty factual questions. There is kind of an impact statement that I believe our planning department has already done on a different piece of property, so I'm basically just informing you that if you want to take specific action, we can bring that back to you at another meeting. Mr. Cooney, I've asked him already in an email today to apply for a 30-day extension so we can have time to work on this. And
This is something contiguous to their property that they're trying?
no,
This is new,
it's non-contiguous.
so they're just trying to, out of the blue, just basically take something off our tax rolls?
Pretty much.
Okay.
That sums it up, I think.
Remember the discussion we had a month ago about a agreement in lieu of taxes?
Right. Just want to let you know that I did have a discussion with Wayne Clatter. He gave me a heads up that he expected something in writing from the Bureau of Indian Affairs regarding this acreage, and that it was not adjacent to any tribal lands. And this is something really different, because all the experience we've had with the band so far has been, they got permission through the state of Michigan to acknowledge that they could build the casino over in M72, and then they acquired land adjacent to that for proposed future economic development, which they have not done so far, but they did buy the land. And we went through this drill, for those of us that have been on the board a while, that they send the standard Bureau of Indian Affairs, 30 days notice, respond, doesn't give any time really for the public to have any kind of impact discussion. During the last round in process, it was very clear from the members of the public and from the Board of Commissioners that were sitting at that time that we wanted the tribe to come forward and put together a memorandum of understanding with the taxing units that if they acquired any future land that was going to be used for economic development, and other than what was at the casino, that our position was that the value of the structure going up, not the value of the land, but the value of the structure being placed on that land would be taxed at its normal tax assessed value, and all the taxing agencies would be reimbursed back a payment in lieu of taxes. And the tribe, we were moving forward with such an agreement back when Bob Kay was the chairman of the tribe, Grand Traverse Band. And when the new board came in, they basically said, we don't know anything about it, we're not going to do anything. My last discussion with Bill Radstatter, if I'm not pronouncing his name right, during this recent discussion of 2% money, I said, where are we at with this understanding about lands being placed in trust and getting the tax dollars back on those if they're placed in trust? And he said he's still recommending that the tribe move forward with that agreement. It's just convincing the tribe to do it. And so I know that Wayne Clatter mentioned to me that it was just his personal opinion at the time that Acme Township would likely be sending a letter with this 30-day notice process, that they would not be in favor of the Bureau of Indian Affairs putting the lands in trust without some sort of written agreement with the local units of government, that we would be reimbursed if they put any kind of fixture on the land and we got left out on the taxes on that thing. So, and I was talking to Dave Benda, our administrator, and it was his understanding there are different rules with acquisition of land from the tribe, whether they be adjacent, and they have another set of rules, and if they're not adjacent, they have another set of rules. But I'm going to go back and do some more research on this thing, because it was my understanding, I guess preliminary understanding, that the tribe, with its treaty, could not, they needed the consent of the state of Michigan and the local units, I thought, to acquire land and place it in trust if it was not adjacent to the property. So, I even questioned their ability to do it, to be honest with you. But I think that if we do anything at this board level, I think that we should, my recommendation is we send a similar message to the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the Grand Traverse Band that we're not supportive of any type of application for acquisition of new lands and placing lands in trust until we get an agreement with them for payment in lieu of taxes. That's my position as one commissioner. So.
But
Commissioner Wheelock?
the addition,
Go ahead.
the buildings are taxable.
No, they aren't.
Anything they put on there is.
No, they aren't. That's what we're trying to get to.
If the land goes into the trust, if my memory is right, and we had a lot of discussion about this because they had some adjacent property that they had a right of first refusal on that actually wasn't contiguous property back a number of years ago when we had the whole thing about the economic development of the property there adjacent to Arnold Road.
Right.
And basically, in the short sell, the BIA's opinion was they didn't care what we thought.
Right.
But that was pretty much their response to the last go-around.
Right.
You know, I think we're appropriate to ask for the 30-day extension, but they may or may not give it to you. You know, but it's appropriate to ask. You know, I firmly believe that we have to keep hammering to get a payment in lieu of taxes. I don't give a damn if they pay the money out of the 2% or where they pay it from, but we need payment in lieu of taxes on these developments. Because this is going to, you know, I've said for years, they're going to continue to get property along M72, and either now or later, they're going to decide that Grand Traverse Resort is trust land, and they're not going to pay tax on it.
They got one parcel left to purchase.
They have like one piece, and
acquisition.
they will own M72 from Turtle Creek Casino to the resort.
Right.
They're going to have contiguous land, and it's all going to be part of the reservation, and at that point, they're going to tell you they're going to be done paying taxes on Grand Traverse Resort. And that's a huge piece of money for all of the taxing entities in this community. You know, I think we have to keep hammering to get a payment in lieu of taxes agreement with the Grand Traverse Band. Because it's just what's going to happen.
Okay.
I think if you check, we should check with the equalization department, because
So my suggestion is you go through the process, and then perhaps the board would authorize the chairman to sign a cover letter to go in with it, kind of reiterating what Sonny and I have talked about.
Well, we'll be bringing back the answers to the questions that they've asked us.
Okay.
And let you tinker with the language in the letter that goes to the Bureau.
we'll ask them down at equalization, because I'm still of the view that the improvements on that land is taxable under personal property tax.
No, that's
Not if it's in a different nation.
Hey,
It's a foreign nation.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
You can't go to it. I'll bet you the tribe doesn't pay any personal property tax.
I didn't say that. On their own land. But new land put into trust.
It's going to be their land once it goes in trust, Dick.
All the, well,
Goes into
find
trust, it goes
out
in-
about it
goes in their-
before you
trust,
get
it's
all
their
worked
land.
up.
Well, the real issue is the fact that whether they're a separate nation or part of our nation or a sovereign nation within a nation, we pay to provide services to that nation. And if they, there's a certain base cost providing things like police and ambulance support and, all these things that we have, dispatch, there's a base cost. And when somebody says, I don't want to pay my part, that means everybody else has to pick up the slack. And I really want to encourage, I know you put Bob Cooney on it, I want to encourage him to just look at every possible option we have and present those to the board so that we can, do our due diligence to represent the people that voted for us. as part of our nation.
More on Acme Township, they sent their payment for the invoice we sent. And that's, I'm sure you're pleased to hear
Good,
that.
glad to hear that.
I have another item that you might be interested in. Mr. Dale Stevens has been dismissed from the Cott Millard and Knutson cases. You understand?
Okay. Is the inspector still on yet?
He's the only one that's been dismissed. Everything else is still out there, but he's been dismissed, so
Interesting.
that's a good thing. Our director is. At any rate, and we are, Jen and I are working with the BPW regarding the extension of personal services contract for the DPW director. That's all I have.
Chairman Inman, I guess you're up
Yes,
next.
I just wanted to get this on the agenda because, you know, as you all know, we've been sort of waiting for the new county administrator to get on board before we start moving forward with discussions about our 2013 budget and our strategic plan that ends in 2012 and how we might want to go about proceeding with the work plan for 2013 and the timing of that. And so I did have a discussion with Dave Benda on this as part of his individual discussions with the commissioners, and said that I would be putting this on the agenda, and if he could come in, he could meet with Dean and come in with what their suggestion is. You know, commissioners can obviously give comment about the process for 2013, but knowing we've got a relatively short window here because we held off, you know, until we got Dave on board, and, you know, we're already into July already, so, and we normally come to some conclusion sometime in September, first part of October in our budget. So we got a relatively short period of time, and so I wanted to get on the agenda to get Dean's response and Dave's response in terms of how they might want to see the process going for this year, and then obviously if we have a short window, we might have you know, probably something more condensed this year, and then maybe something more involved as we go through hitting the 2014 budget. But I just threw those three items on the agenda just to open it up for discussion about how we might want to manage our time and the process we might want to use for the budget, the strategic plan, and the work plan. So with that, I wanted to get some input from Dean and Dave.
Well, I've given this some thought, and Dean, you can jump in wherever you feel you'd like to. The budget process that I'm used to is, you know, I would meet with department heads and elected officials, review their budget requests. We try to figure out if there's better ways of doing things, and we have those discussions. And eventually we get to a balanced budget that maybe changes a few things here and there, and they usually have requests that far exceed, you know, our ability to fund those. So we have to come to some conclusions with that. And sometimes everybody's happy and sometimes they're not. And they end up coming before the board or the Ways and Means Committee to discuss the things that we're not in agreement about, but hopefully everyone else stays home because we are in agreement. And then you adopt the budget eventually. As far as your strategic plan goes, that's a guide for us to get started. But I would like to see budget guidelines also. And I prepared a draft of those to hand out to you to kind of give us some direction and some kind of some general marching orders if you want to send those down. And you know, you're in conjunction with your strategic plan. It's almost too late in the day to try and, you know, put a strategic plan together or revise it. What do you got there?
Well, I'm
some of them are stapled, some of them aren't.
Okay.
Okay,
I think you got mine.
all right. I was wondering. Yes, I have yours.
The strategic plan that you have has 7 major overall goals: preserving a healthy environment, public safety, the health and economic well-being of our community, collaboration with other governments, encouraging risk-taking and increasing efficiency and effectiveness in county programs, improving public access to county services, and preserving our financial integrity, to paraphrase your goals. And those are fine goals, and, you know, you can go through all the processes you want. You're not going to come up with much of a different list when you get right down to it. These are really pretty universal goals for counties. You know, preserving our financial integrity is an important thing. Preserving the public safety and preserving the public health and making sure we have a beautiful community. Those are top priorities. So, I mean, so this is a good guide for this budget process for us, and it will help us to get through it. And we'll certainly hold everybody to these goals that you've had for the last several years. I also want to talk later about how we propose to start the strategic planning process. And I see it as a ground-up effort where we start, we ask our employees to talk about the first step in a strategic planning process is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What are we doing well? What are we doing not so well? And get that from the ground up and have departments then take those comments with their staff, do a SWOT analysis internally, and come up with their goals to bring forth to the commission and let the commission look at what each of these departments are suggesting that they do with their missions. Because we have a lot of departments that don't fall under, you know, the big, you know, be healthy, you know, great environment. We have these mandated services that the state government has put upon us, like equalizing property. And, you know, when you talk about goals, when we started looking at the map for these tribal properties or these properties that would go into trust, it came up that we don't have a parcel numbering system here. And it's an important thing to have a countywide parcel numbering system, but that's not very important to 7 or 9 of you, when there are 9 here, but it's important to the equalization people, and it's important to the assessors, and it's important to the people who are trying to get things done. It slows things down, makes things take a lot more time, it's less efficient. So it kind of falls in the becoming more efficient category. So, you know, that's the way I see the strategic plan actually coming up from the ground, and then every month, new things come up, things are completed and done, projects are done, they drop off. I think a strategic plan ought to be constantly renewing itself every month. So that's kind of the way I look at it happening. It starts with SWOT analysis at the employee level, then SWOT analysis at departmental level, and then a SWOT analysis at the board level and management level and top management level, and then we put together that final strategic plan.
Commissioner Gilman?
I was going to comment that we also had our priorities list last year, where we actually went through and kind of assigned a value, and some things from the board came out as not so high on the list. And when you're talking to your departments, of course, you kind of, and you're looking at, like you say, the opportunities and threats. Well, sometimes the opportunities might have to be reprioritized based on what our interests might be here as far as policy goes. So.
I'm assuming that, like last year, money's going to be tight in next year's budget.
It's looking that way.
I would like to repeat that priority exercise that we did last year. Actually, mine hasn't changed. I don't know if Dean or you still have mine on file, but my priorities have not changed. But other commissioners may have.
Yeah.
And I would like to see us, it doesn't take very long, we're limited, you know, you don't get to give everybody all 3s. You know, you get so many 3s, so many 2s, so many 1s, and last year I believe we had 1 0. Because somebody didn't follow directions.
There might have been a couple of us. That wasn't important.
But I would like us to repeat that exercise.
Well, I think I remember that was a grid that Dennis had put together it was similar to the budgeting for outcomes process that he just snagged that from. But I guess as a starting point, Dean and Dave, do we have a preliminary estimate if we're going, you know, if there is a shortfall, what that estimate might be? Or we're not even prepared even to get that close yet?
No, you know, we're working on the departments have made their requests. We're working on the revenue side of the budget. You know, the big thing is trying to determine what the tax revenue is doing, and equalization has helped or assisted with that. The county treasurer has provided us with, you know, what the tax levy looks like for the bills that just went out. So we're really just starting to put things together. When you look at the requests that have been made by the departments and trying to balance out the funds that we appropriate to, we have a gap. We always have a gap. Expenditures are, you know, greater than revenues at this point, but we've got a lot of work to do. Dave and I have just started to discuss, you know, how the numbers come together, and we're going to be busy the next month to balance the budget.
But as we look at that, the budget guidelines I just handed out are a draft for you to look at, and maybe at Ways and Means we can discuss it. And it kind of will give us some direction. It's like I said, it's a draft. We've included a lot of things that we think that, you know, just ought to be stated, you know, right out front. And if there are other things that need to be stated right out front or that you want to add, you know, then feel free to propose.
Dave, I was just going to point out, you know, I come from a business background, haven't been involved in government more than just a handful of years, so a SWOT analysis was always something, it was a business thing to me, and the first time I heard it suggested to be used in government, I had a few concerns, because there's some inherent dangers you need to be aware of when you use a SWOT analysis in a government program. You know, the idea of opportunity means growing the bureaucracy in some people's minds. An idea of a threat, for example, a health department, a threat would be healthy people, because then you wouldn't need a health department.
From one perspective, I guess.
You know, so I just wanted to voice, you know, concerns from my business perspective of, you know, there's some inherent dangers. We need to be using the SWOT analysis on the mission, not on the department.
Well, you know, if I may speak, you know, a threat might be, or a concern might be something we addressed tonight. You know, it's okay. There's going to be a large number of people, you know, coming back and forth to Afghanistan, and they're going to end up in his office and Veterans Affairs office. So, you know, that's a threat.
Threat's the mission, not the bureaucracy.
And, you know, I don't, hopefully, you know, we're not going to use that as a tool to expand government, but certainly what we can do is we can probably identify what areas we have to better be prepared for, and, you know, and then we go back into Commissioner Maxbauer's suggestion about, then we go back to that grid and kind of prioritize the, you know, different functions of county, and, you know, if something's going to drop off, then we'll have an indication of how we feel from that grid. But.
Well, I would like to hear how others feel about prioritizing and the sooner the better, in my opinion, primarily because I would hate to have Dean and Dave work tirelessly on a budget and then have them present it to us and we go, we want this, 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 this. I'd like them to know up front where our priorities are.
If I might, I believe that we would be covering that under item number 2 in your process here then, as far as determining our priorities. That's early in the process. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, the rest of it actually looks quite good. I think it works very well. And if you have that information from us early, then I think it's going to be a lot easier for you to go forward.
Yeah, I mean, if there are county services that you believe need to be eliminated or enhanced in a great, you know, in great fashion, then those would be good things to put into the guidelines.
Okay. Good. Could we? Is there a possibility we could find that grid, Dean, or through administration or through your office, and then send it back out to everyone? And then it'd be helpful if we could get a summary of what we did last year on that grid.
Well, if you have your budget manual, I know they're big binders, you should know exactly where they're at.
I know where mine is.
It's in that document, but
Yeah.
I
handed
I can
that
go
back
home
in
and grab it,
administration.
I'm sure.
I think I've
We
got
can
an Excel
email
copy
it
of it
to you as well.
Yeah, I need a copy of that because I handed the whole booklet back to administration.
Yeah,
We'll make sure we get that back out to you.
I think I might have it in my iPad. which if you had an iPad, I could probably just shoot it over to you.
Yeah.
All right, good. Well, I'm covered on all those 3 points then, right now.
Okay, everybody happy with the budget process so far? All right, good. Any unfinished business? No? Any new business? This brings us to second general public comment. If anyone wishing to make public comment on any issue?
Other than there was a recognition for
Hey, he's here.
Yes, Ralph, you
Ralph Safardini. Congratulations on your award.
Am I late?
Yes.
George already
Yes.
Georgia came to the podium and reminded everyone.
I was at home, I'm flashing television.
Yeah.
I looked over and said, oh, that's where I was supposed to be.
Well, you're
You know, Ralph, one thing about it, you were named the senior of the year. That's one of those senior moments.
That's it. You get a lot of those.
Yeah.
Congratulations,
Well,
Ralph.
congratulations, Ralph.
Okay, which brings us then, if there's no public comment, to commissioner committee reports. Seeing none. Notices and/or announcements.
I noticed there's a BPW meeting in the morning.
Okay.
It should be interesting,
What time is that?
9 o'clock,
And where is it?
Garfield.
Okay. And that brings us to I'm sorry.
Yes, notices and announcements. We have the Recycle Smart Kids Only Garage Sale, Saturday, August 11th, from 9 a.m. to noon at the Civic Center. And it's one of those things I brought back from a Parks and Rec conference. And it promotes use of parks. At the same time, it promotes recycling. And kids have a great time. So August 11th, Saturday.
All right, any need for a closed session?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Say goodbye, Dickie.
Good night, Dick.
John?
Good night, Dick.
John was supposed to...
Remember laugh at the show?
Yeah.
At the end of the show?
Wait,
Good night,
it's
Dick.
10 o'clock yet? We can't leave.